Hi guys, welcome to Origin. In this video I'm going to be talking about the EU referendum, and I'm going to start with something that will probably be controversial. The arguments I've seen from both sides haven't really they haven't really resonated with me. They've been talking about things like economics, whether we'd be better off, or immigration, sovereignty was mentioned in one video. None of that is even a factor in my decision. Not even slightly. Why? Well, I'm thinking slightly further into the future than that. I've made videos on my channel in the last year or so talking about where people think the future is heading, what kind of technologies we'll have, what we'll be like, what we'll think like, what we'll look like, and these, some of these people are predicting unimaginably profound changes are going to take place well within my lifetime, and I would say most people watching this video as well, barring accidents, of course. And I just want to focus on one of these, and that's the idea of colonizing other planets. So picture this scenario. Let's say it's 40 years into the future, and let's say, I'm not necessarily saying I want to do this. I'm not necessarily saying, I want to do this. But let's just say I'm still alive and I'm living on Mars. What nationality am I? Well, obviously I was born in Scotland. Scotland is part of the UK, so I'm also British. And Britain is, part of the European continent, so I'm also European. Any of those things are fine. Let's pose a more interesting question though. Let's say that I have a kid on Mars. What nationality is the child? Now, at this point you also have to take into things like, what's the nationality of my wife? She could be Scottish, she could be British, European, or even American, Canadian, Indian, Mexican, Australian. It could be anywhere in the world. But the child was born on Mars. We're not on Earth anymore. All I've just done is list countries, all of which are on the planet, that at any point in time could be from 30 to 250 million miles away. And more importantly, all of those countries, for all intents and purposes, are really the same distance away from you at that point. What's a few thousand miles compared to tens or hundreds of millions? It's tiny, completely insignificant. My children wouldn't care one iota about the arbitrary landmass that I was born on, or my wife was born on, or really any of the parents of the kids that they'll know on the colony. None of that's going to matter to them. But, well, I don't know, maybe you disagree. Maybe when the first people leave, you're saying, well, maybe you'll you'll experience some kind of national pride at the fact that your country is being represented on that, first mission. And really, all I can say to that is, well, why do you feel that way? Why does it matter so much? I mean, when they're up there, once they've got the colony going, and especially once the first generation is born there, and they interact with people whose parents are from all over Earth, but they themselves were born on Mars. I mean, what do you think they're going to think of us now when they're grown up? You don't think they'll find the idea that we were proud of the fact that their parents were born on the same arbitrary piece of land on a planet tens of millions of miles away at best, just a bit silly. I mean, yeah, they'll know about borders. They'll, it stands to reason they'll have some version of the internet, obviously far more futuristic. They'll be able to look up all of this information. They'll get taught history like anyone else. They'll have a theoretical understanding of borders, but in terms of an actual real world, what they experience from day to day, they're not going to have a practical concept of a border, are they? I mean, they're going to interact with like kids in the colony whose parents were from all over the place. They might look slightly different. They might have slightly different accents. So there might be, it stands to reason they'll probably still have different languages once they're up on the colony, but still, they're all going to be sharing the same space. There's no reason to divide it up once you get up there. And yeah, sure, they'll form their own social groups around things like their personalities, their sense of humour, what VR films they like, or whatever it happens to be. But, my daddy was born on a different arbitrary landmass on a different planet to your daddy. No, not going to happen, is it? Or at least to me, it just sounds extremely ridiculous. And I mean, this is just the beginning. I mean, what happens when you go even further out? Alpha Centauri, the edge of the galaxy. This is what's in the future, and these ideas are a lot sooner in terms of timescale than you might think they are to happening. This is what futurists nowadays are saying. And these are the kind of things that I think about all the time. So, while you're worrying about whether we'll have more money in or out of the EU, I'm thinking about what happens to our society once we can 3D bioprint any kind of food far more cheaply, sustainably, with far fewer resources than when we grow our food today. Or, while you're worrying about other people, stealing your jobs and whatever have you, so much that you're prepared to build massive walls and shoot politicians and, while you're doing all of that, I'm wondering whether when people come to create their own custom bodies in the future, will they have to restrict them to a certain size? Maybe too many people who are thousands of feet tall, that might just be seen as hoarding resources. Just extremely selfish. Is that going to be legislated against? These are the kind of questions that I like to think about far more than, well, what I've just mentioned. And of course, what happens when we have to confront the fact that someone is so tight in ideology, a particular belief, that they're willing to kill tens, hundreds, or even thousands of people for it? I'm not seeing an evil, brainwashed terrorist in the throes of a death cult. I'm seeing, well, let's look at it this way. In the West, we're in the process of defeating discrimination, poverty, disease, war, and we're not done. I get that. We've got, so much more still to do. But, and of course, every country is developing in their own different way at different rates, but we're getting there. But, we were all dealt different hands, and we have to work with what we have. Some countries weren't dealt a very great starting hand, and so they've had to catch up, or, still, well, some of them have caught up, some are still need to catch up, but it will happen, right? And well, we're all trying just as hard, but let's say you've got a calculator and your equally hard-working friend just has his fingers. It's no contest. So what I'm thinking is, how do we get everyone to the same point so that we all have fewer reasons to kill each other and far more reasons to actually want to help each other? To me, that's a far more useful and constructive response any day. So, to put it simply, I don't recognise your borders. I don't want to strengthen them. And for that reason, I'm very much in. I'm in the EU. And this is going to be the easiest decision I've ever made in a voting booth. Now, at this point, people will say, well, be sure to vote the same way as well. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say that. If I have to say something to round this off, just get some perspective. Don't make a decision selfishly. Try to see the bigger picture. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. And yes, I was reading off the screen behind me, but I just wanted to get these ideas down so I can,